nations, 2 recently serving in Afghanistan and Iraq. How dare they? Shame on them! Shame on them!
The majority of delegates in Maine, Minnesota, Nevada, Iowa, and Virginia are Paul supporters. He also had a majority in Oregon and Louisiana, plus a large group of 17 delegates from Massachusetts. Now, as I've told you, the RNC for months has been stripping those delegates of their credentials. The Massachusetts 17, as they're called, removed. The entire Louisiana Liberty delegation, removed. Oklahoma, not seated, because the RNC Rules Committee allowed the state to break its own rules. The same thing happened in Oregon. But even after continuously breaking their own rules and stripping so many states of these delegates, the RNC came up short. The 5-state rule was still a problem because a plurality of 5 states was still intact. Again, Maine, Minnesota, Iowa, Nevada, and Virginia. So what to do? Well, just change the rules. You see, this week, the RNC Rules Committee tried to take care of their 5-state problem by changing the 5-state rule. A motion was made in the Rules Committee to increase the number of states from 5 to 10.
Part of Maine's delegation stormed off the floor in protest against a decision to strip away half of the state's Ron Paul delegates. Supportive members of other delegations rose to their feet and hollered their objections, angered by new rules that they say will make it harder for grassroots candidates to stand a chance in future elections. His ardent followers used seldom evoked state party rules to garner 20 of Maine's 24 spots.
The RNC responded by replacing 10 of them, enough to prevent Ron Paul from being nominated from the floor.
A question on the motion offered by the delegate from Kentucky. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no.
The decision caused an immediate uproar, but RNC Chair Reince Priebus was in no mood to take a roll call.
Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. We have to proceed with the order of business.
He sat here and objected. He said, are there any objections? We objected. And you know, it's like, why even ask the question at that point?
Maine got screwed of half their delegates, more than half actually. That's why their governor's not here today, because he said he wouldn't come down unless their delegates got seated. Half of them got taken away, and they were replaced by people that the Republican Party, the RNC picked.
Several members of the Maine delegation walked off the floor in protest after the convention decided to replace 10 of its 24 delegates.
I told you last week that the entire state of Maine was stripped of their credentials because they were going to vote for Congressman Ron Paul and not for Governor Mitt Romney. As a result, Maine's governor, Paul LePage, is boycotting the RNC. Saturday, I was given an exclusive opportunity to talk with Governor Romney and Congressman Paul Ryan one-on-one. The interview, though, had conditions. It was supposed to be about what the two will do for the state of Ohio. We covered those issues as I said that we would in order to be granted that interview. But as we were getting the signal to wrap it up, I wasn't going to let this opportunity to go by without first asking how the governor could support the RNC stripping these Maine delegates of their credentials. I asked it even though we were told that the campaign did not want to talk about delegates. Yesterday, the RNC chose to remove the entire Maine delegation from being able to be seated as a part of that. Do you believe that that is the right step for the RNC to have taken, considering the fact that these people were elected, they're Republicans who were elected by Republicans to go and represent the state of Maine?
You know, I haven't seen the inner politics of what's gone on, and I'm not going to comment on the RNC's decision. I really haven't looked at this.
Really? So Governor Romney claims he wasn't aware of his own campaign having an entire state of delegates stripped of their credentials? Hard to believe when it was his campaign that led the challenge of these delegates. But then again, Governor Romney also claims to not have realized that his chief legal counsel just pushed through what many top GOP leaders are calling the biggest GOP power grab in the party's history. So here's what happened. Conservatives and even some moderates are accusing the Romney chief attorney, Ben Ginsburg, of pushing through a rules change for delegate selection. that would give Mitt Romney enormous power over the primary process, should he win the White House and seek re-election in 2016. According to the Washington Times, Ginsburg persuaded the RNC Rules Committee members to let Mr. Romney, if he becomes president, decide which delegates will be seated at the 2016 GOP presidential nominating convention. It also calls for letting future presidential hopefuls decide who gets to take the delegate slots that they win in each state. Tea Party supporter and the founder of Freedom Works, Dick Armey, came out strongly against this RNC rule, saying this, quote, "The process has always been bottom-up, but Romney officials have rewritten the rules so that the nominee can stifle any dissent on the platform committee and even unseat delegates. Make no mistake, this will weaken the process by which Republicans choose their candidate for president and push the grassroots out of the party process." So when Romney told me on Saturday that he isn't worried about the delegates, he apparently meant it.
I'm sure that the convention will work just fine. We'll have a lot of delegates there. We're going to get the nomination. I'm not worried about that.
So what you need to know is that there is a saying in Maine: as Maine goes, so goes the rest of the nation. And that's why this delegate battle in Maine really is so important. Let me break this down like this. In Maine, Republican delegates were elected by Republicans. The RNC didn't like who they were going to vote for, even though under state rules they had every right. So the RNC said, we're going to replace those delegates with ones who will vote the way we want. Under this new rule change, in 2016, the same thing that happened this year in Maine will happen to every state in the country. One campaign will have veto power over every single delegate, which means party bosses run everything, and those at the grassroots level are cut off.
What this means is that the states will no longer retain the right under the new rules to elect their delegates and have them stand. A presumptive nominee will be able to unseat an entire state's delegates if they don't like who's on the slate. Giving a presidential candidate veto power over a state's delegation means that future conventions will not have a dissenting voice. We won't be able to bring motions and amendments to our platform. We won't be able to speak for people who believe differently. You're taking a broad tent and a grassroots party and you're turning it into a dictatorship that'll be run by a few people with a lot of money. And average, ordinary people like myself will be out of luck and out of a voice.
The question is on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Any other chair? The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it.
To lead the Republican Party in the Ocean State. It's the little state name, for the record, Rhode Island and the Providence Plantation.
You're not supposed to.
It's the home of the much known, such as the Greedy Miss USA. And then you go
sorry, property. I'm sorry. That's my.
I am pleased now to yield to the mayor of the city of Cranston, the Honorable
You
Let him speak! 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 Let him speak!
On behalf of the Georgia Republican voters, proudly give 72 of our delegate votes to the next President of the United States, Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan. 3 votes for Romney.
Okay.
Well done. Whoever controlled the microphone did a great job.
Iowa casts 22 votes for Ron Paul. And 6 votes for Mitt Romney.
Iowa, 6, Romney.
Minnesota, where we are very proud of our state Republican Party. which runs a fair convention with integrity. It casts 33 votes for Ron Paul. 1 vote for Senator Rick Santorum, and 6 votes for Governor Romney.
Minnesota, 6, Romney.
We proudly cast 17 votes for Congressman Ron Paul, 5 abstentions, and 5 for Romney.
Nevada, 5, Romney.
Nevada, 5, Romney.
I was pretty shocked to hear that they wouldn't even read from the podium how many votes Congressman Paul got.
Well, one of the interesting things was the crowd was reciting how many he got, so when they wouldn't announce it from the podium, you would hear an echo from the crowd.
RNC pushed through a new rule that will forever change the way that Republicans choose their candidates. Rule 16 is for the election, selection, allocation, or binding of delegates and alternate delegates. In layman's terms, that means there are no more free delegates to vote as they choose. It means no delegate, even if elected by Republicans of that state, may serve as a delegate if the candidate and the state party decide they don't like them and they want to replace them. Conservatives, Tea Party members, and Liberty supporters immediately vowed a floor fight over this rule. On Tuesday morning, delegates from Virginia and Rhode Island were on their way to lead that fight when their bus driver refused to stop at the convention center 3 times, circling the building, then leaving the area altogether. And when they returned to the convention center, well, the delegates had already missed their chance to vote on this issue. One of those Virginia delegates, Matthew Hurt, tweeted as this was going on. Take a look. Morton Blackwell was on a bus outside the Rules Committee where he's needed to fight for grassroots conservatives. We have looped around the GOP convention twice and driven away from it. Rules Committee member Morton Blackwell still on the bus. So who is this Morton Blackwell that was trapped on this bus with Virginia delegates? Blackwell is a member of the RNC Rules Committee, and he was the most ardent advocate opposed to the rules change. Now, inside the convention hall, delegates who did make it, they were asked by Speaker of the House John Boehner to vote on adopting this new rule. Now listen as the vote is taken.
The question is on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Pending another chair, the ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it? How could the Speaker of the House determine clearly how many voted aye and how many voted no? Listen again, but this time to cell phone video from inside the crowd. Well, maybe there's a good reason, a really good reason, that Boehner claimed the ayes had it. Today, incredible cell phone video was released as delegates stood by and videotaped the teleprompter that Speaker Boehner was reading from. We're going to take this video full so you can read along for yourself.
Thank you for putting this question is ordered. The question is on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it.
So, the most controversial rule in the Republican Party history, according to countless conservatives, wasn't voted through at all. It was scripted. Despite the shouts of what at least half the room of delegates appeared to have been voting, Boehner just read along with the script.
Boehner just read along with the script. Boehner just read along with the script.